Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Careers in Aviation, brought to you by Adorn Before Flight. I'm your host, Bernard Green.
Airlines 43177. With the 279 crossing triple, 15-meter level 757, or 28 center, cleared to land, wind at 310 and 13. Airlines 3279.
Careers in Aviation is a video series dedicated to introducing today's youth to tomorrow's employment opportunities in aviation. This is part 1 of our series, where we introduce you to various aviation professionals. In episode 3, we met Ashley Wimbush, an air traffic controller at the Memphis Air Traffic Control Tower. Today, we're still at Memphis International Airport, only we're at a construction site. Have you ever traveled past a construction site and wondered what on earth they were building? If you look at the one behind me, it looks like it could be almost anything or maybe nothing at all. Well, I happen to know what the one behind me will be. And once construction is complete, it will be a large apron area, or what we sometimes refer to as a hole pad, which is basically a large parking lot for airplanes. Only this apron area will be able to accommodate several aircraft at the same time so that they can handle pre-departure tasks before they take off. This could be something like removing all the ice and snow from the airplane. The question is, who even produces the drawings and the documents necessary for the construction crews to build projects like the one behind me? Well, the answer is, usually for projects like these involving pavement, is a team of civil engineers. Today, we're going to meet Johnny Jackson. Johnny is a civil engineer who's worked extensively with airports, and he has a lot of experience producing those drawings and documents, as well as leading and coordinating the teams that are necessary to produce projects like the one behind me. Have you ever met anyone who does anything like that? Would you like to? Okay, great. Let's go meet an airport civil engineer. Johnny Jackson, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Brother Bernard. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic now.
That's great to hear.
Thanks. So I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Careers in Aviation, brought to you by Adorn Before Flight. And we're really excited. I want to make one quick note here just for your information. We are standing here on the airfield at Memphis International Airport. Our last interview was with an air traffic controller who was at the Memphis Tower. And we decided to come on downstairs to this construction site. This is going to be a de-icing pad behind us here. And because we thought it would be fitting, because as we know, you are a civil engineer, and civil engineers typically have a lot to do with telling the folks where all these things behind me should go and where they need to go.
No, that is true. I am a civil engineer, and so that site looks pretty familiar to a lot of the construction sites I've been on and around. So,
fantastic. So, how did you get into aviation, and what made you interested in aviation?
You know, for me, it wasn't anything that I had a deep interest in. I do remember as a kid, I grew up in Los Angeles, and from time to time, me and my friends, I remember we would lay down on the grass and look up at the sky and watch the planes, fly, and the ice cream truck would come and we would get the little, paper airplanes off the ice cream truck. So, but when it came to the career path, it was just something that I stumbled into during the internship, but it wasn't anything that I was looking to do.
Okay, interesting. And so you basically just kind of stumbled in on it, and sounds like, and went from there. So what do you do at your job, and what are you responsible for, more specifically today, if you will?
Yeah, so right now I've evolved from the beginning when I started in this career path. And so right now I'm based in Dallas, and the title that I hold is what they call a manager of projects. So basically I'm just a program manager, but I oversee a portfolio of projects being led by other project managers and design managers. And so basically, throughout the month, I'm constantly keeping contact with the project managers and design managers, keeping a pulse on the projects, understanding how they're moving forward, if they've got any financial issues, if they've got any support needs and things of that nature. And then I help guide them to whatever aspects are necessary. Guide them in regards to any client needs that need to occur, change orders. And then I report out to the operations leaders for the company on a monthly basis. So, every now and then I may get a little dirty in terms of, little design reviews and stuff like that. But really, it's really just managing a portfolio of projects.
I see. So is it safe? It's safe to say I'll presume that you basically what you're working on the consultant side of the house. So you work for a consulting company, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And just for our viewers' sake, can you kind of expound on the different areas in which a civil engineer like yourself might work on or work at? So you're working at a consulting firm. Where else in aviation might someone that wears your hat, if you will, of civil engineer work at?
So from a civil engineering perspective, thinking about my colleagues in and around an airport, so I'm on the consulting side. You may even have some that have some career paths in, say, the construction management side, although they may be similar on the consulting side. You may have some that actually work for contractors. So, what's behind you, there may be an engineer that's on the contractor side that's helping them actually do the actual construction. You may have civil engineers actually working directly for the airport. And so most airports have different divisions. They'll have their environmental division, they'll have an asset management division, they'll have a management design department as well. So you may have engineers that work in and around inside the airport. And then I've even run across engineers that even work for some of the airline companies, right? And
Okay.
so they work and do different things when and around the airport. So, there's a litany of things that you can do. You may even work for, a lot of airports have commercial development around the airports. So you could be working in a commercial development aspect, dealing with properties in and around the airport as well. So the vastness of what you can do working in and around an airport is great, especially in the civil engineering field.
Okay, that's very interesting and very insightful. Oh, one thing you didn't mention necessarily, and I suppose could be like, what about the government? I guess some work for the government. Obviously the FAA is a big part of aviation and airports. Do you ever interact with federal government civil engineers too?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. So the Federal Aviation Administration, at one point, I was considering employment, practice with them. Obviously, it didn't go through. Stayed on the consultant side, but that. So you think about other, say stakeholders. So you could work for a water district. So you can even work for a city per se, in the civil engineering arena. Whether that be in the airport property, maybe not, but sometimes the permitting aspect gets tied to an airport. But and then you also maybe have some sort of aspects of chemical companies. They bring in civil engineers, so therefore you think about say like a fueling company. They may have a civil engineer working for them that's bringing fuel to the airports to the aircraft. So yeah, so there's a lot of other avenues as well.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. And so you are essentially in charge, it sounds like, from your perspective. It sounds like, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'll say so. Maybe my colleagues may think differently, but no, yeah, I can say I'm in charge a little bit. I have some control.
Okay. And so in your role, being sort of in charge, if you will, who all do you get to work with on a daily basis? What sort of entities do you talk to? I know you mentioned some of those people. Can you kind of restate them maybe for us, just to kind of solidify it?
So even though I'm working and overseeing my program managers or project managers and designers, they're working, with the Federal Aviation Administration, the different ADOs, depending on where we are. I mean, I was just dealing back and forth with that situation on one of my projects. So having one-on-one dialogue with different levels, you know, the engineering side of the uh, FAA, as well as the cert inspectors also. Obviously, I deal a lot with the clients. So anybody that's working for an airport, I'm working directly with them. Sometimes the way airport projects are set up, they have multiple consultants doing different things, working on different projects, or doing a program management, construction management. So I'm working and dealing with other consultants. I'm also dealing with municipalities that, you know, may be in and around an airport, you know. So, you know, if there's a city agency around the airport, I may deal with them. You know, homeowners. I got a project right now where we're having to interact with the homeowners. It's a noise program. So we interact with them as well. And, you know, contractors is probably the next best thing that I deal with, is because they're taking the plans that we've designed and they're interpreting them into, you know, what needs to actually be put and physically built. So I deal with those people as well.
Okay, very, very interesting, very cool. Uh, I so I understand that you worked on or were in charge of, speaking of being in charge, that you were in charge of a large part of what we now know Chicago O'Hare's International Airport to be, particularly on the South Airfield.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Yes, yes.
And,
9 years I spent in Chicago. To kind of give you a history and back up to it. So, you know, when I started my career in aviation in Louisville, again, I started as an intern back in the late 90s. My mentor who brought me into aviation and kind of tutored me into what I know today. Again, nothing that I learned was from school. It was all during work. And he took the opportunity and moved to Chicago to work on the O'Hare Modernization program. Again, I'm from Los Angeles, so I never wanted to go any further north than Louisville because of the weather. But you know, I had been doing some things at, you know, various airports for various clients, and it was a situation where I sat back and thought about it, and I said, you know, I can't write this career path, right? There's not often that you have an airport such as Chicago going through restructuring as it did with the runway systems. And I said, look, this is something that I've got to do for myself, my career. So I moved up to Chicago. And so my role as part of the Master Civil was a contract that I worked with, was to oversee other consultants, other designers who were designing small pieces of various projects to help the reorganization of the runway system and taxiway system at O'Hare. So I was overseeing the South. So I oversaw a runway extension, a brand new runway, which was 10 Center, 28 Center, the relocation of two sort facilities, FedEx and United Cargo. We relocated a rail line twice. We relocated a community and a few arterials in and around that project site, as well as a cemetery dating back to the late and mid 1800s. So, you know, so again, you think about what I did, and it's like I was so grateful for the fact that I made that decision to move to Chicago to work on that. And so, you know, my role again was overseeing the designers and helping them coordinate with a lot of the agencies that I just mentioned to you, the FAA being one of the particular ones, the airlines as well. And then, you know, other designers that, you know, they had to connect to. So it was a unique role. It was a great opportunity. I learned a lot, met a lot of people, met a lot more diverse people in the field. So it was great. I'm glad I did it.
okay, wow, that sounds really fascinating. That like to your previous point, working in different places and things and communities and what have you. I guess there's not too many civil engineers who can say they've worked on all those specific elements under one project, maybe perhaps. So
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
that sounds really interesting. And then I guess you also mentioned that you had the opportunity to work with a very diverse group of people.
Mhm.
How do you find working just in general in your field? How do you find the diversity in general as being a aviation civil engineer?
You know, it's grown again since the 90s. You know, I started in Louisville, and I remember coming in as an intern, and really, I was the only Black engineer, or I was practicing, you know, becoming engineer. The only other Black person was the secretary. And so when I would go to, functions in and around golf scrambles, those things, industry events, I really didn't see other people that looked like me. I didn't really see, and again, this was in Kentucky. I didn't see any other ethnicities. When I moved to Chicago, it was a different flavor. I saw more, African Americans. I actually worked with some people just directly from Africa. Italians, Armenians, Greek, Palestinians. It was a wide range of people. So part of it I saw too was the location, right? So depending on where you are practicing your craft, it may dictate, your exposure to other ethnicities. But overall, now when you think about it collectively, there are more diverse people coming into the aviation space, which was even still smaller. Again, back in the late 90s. So it's still becoming something more known for people as a career path. But I am seeing more and more diversification as the years proceed.
Okay, that's good. That's good for, in particular, our viewers to know. Uh, we had a conversation with our previous viewer, or our previous interviewee, and it was mentioned that that richness of diversity kind of adds flavor and problem solving and all those types of things. So it's good to have that because more than one thought or approach to things is, especially in engineering, seems to be a good thing.
Right, right. And
So,
that's interesting, for that person to make that comment. And you're seeing that a lot more in industry. They use the term diversity of thought, right? And there's been talks about that. Would say, well, you can have all the same in ethnicity and have the diversity of thought, which is true, but that's not what you're trying to get. You're trying to get not only the diversity for thought in terms of different people that may look the same, but from different people, because there's a lot of different varieties of experiences that we bring, right? And so you think about a situation, say we relocated a community, but depending on where that airport was and the community surrounding it, I may have a different take on being relocated and the troubles that may happen if I'm relocated than someone else, right? And so you want to have a wide range of people that can bring a different experience, life experiences, because that weighs in on a lot of decisions that you're making sometimes when you're designing things or you're impacting communities in and around your project site. So we're doing a lot even within our company, which I did mention, Jacobs, to make sure that we're even getting deeper in our diversification through all the levels of the company, right? All the way from the boardroom, ELT, senior vice presidents, all the way down and cascading throughout the company. So it's become more of a focused understanding that we need to make sure we're doing more to drive diversity and making sure people are prepared to be in those leadership roles, as opposed to just saying it on the website, but not actually living it or looking like that diverse group of people that we want to be.
wow, yeah, sounds like they're trying to practice what they preach in a sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's good. That's a good thing. So, what would a typical great day look like, and conversely, what does a not so great day look like
Yeah.
for you?
For me, so you think about what I'm doing right now today. If I talk to my colleagues and it's like I call them, do you have any issues? They have no issues. They have no money issues. They have no staff issues. Everything is going. The system, the IT system is working fine. No computer problems. Everybody's happy. Nobody's worried about anything. That's a good day for me. And respectively to the client, I don't have a client calling me about an issue, whether it's, what they would perceive to be, from us or a contractor. Everything is great. Conversely, a bad day, these things just happen. It's like, okay, the client is calling because the contractor has an issue in the field and they need a quick response. And I'm trying to get with my colleague and I can't catch him because he's got another assignment. So I'm trying to find somebody else to do it, but they don't know enough about the project and we're already over budget, but we're trying to make sure we do what we need to do. So that's a bad day, right? And it's just like you're really trying to piece a thing together and minimize the losses. But liability and standing behind your work, you're willing to move forward and get it done. And then I would say another aspect of a bad day is, again, you got a lot of stakeholders. So I'm just mentioning the client in terms of the airport. And so understanding that we're all being impacted when something is happening, right? You got passengers, you got things of that nature. And, the airlines want to make sure that they're keeping, all their metrics up in terms of how quickly they turn a plane and the people are getting on and off and they're not delayed. But, there's times when, everybody's, focused on their needs, right? And not looking at the bigger picture. And so sometimes you got to deal with people and agencies that are like, hey, we want it this way. We want this to be done this way. But I understand that my colleague or my counterpart over here feels this way. I'm worried about my situation. And so sometimes getting people all on the same page to understand, there may be some hiccups here and there, may be some uncomfortable situations you've got to be in order for a greater good, you know, those can be challenging as well. So on the flip for that one is when everybody's working in harmony, right? Everybody's willing to be humble and giving and willing to take one for the team. So that's a good day when you're dealing with all the multiple stakeholders associated with a project.
Okay, that's good to know. Is there anything that sort of really discourages you or prevents you from doing what you're doing, or do the good days sort of outweigh those types of things? I just want to give the viewers a sort of like a full flavor, if you will. Obviously there's going to be some good days, and obviously there's going to be some not so great days. But is there anything that you feel that's how do you deal with, rather, I should say, how do you deal with those more excessively bad days or not so great days? Because obviously you have something that you're doing is working, and I'd be curious to know. I'm sure our viewers would really appreciate that.
Yeah. You think back, take yourself away from the actual day-to-day job, and we've all got families. And so, that's a big driver for me, right? I haven't heard of anyone having a perfect life. Let's say it that way, right? So you got to understand that there's nothing that's going to be perfect. And so, you think about what you're doing for the greater good of serving a community at some point, that's going to be a great, de-icing pad to allow aircraft to get on and off the ground safely, right? So you think about that, right? So all the issues that may come with trying to get that done, that you've created a situation where those planes, whether it's packages or people within it, that pilot will be able to get off the ground knowing that he's safe because he had a place to take that plane and get it de-iced. And so it's just understanding that, although it can be challenging from time to time, a lot of times, since I've grown and matured in my career path, I like to tell my colleagues and direct reports, put yourself in that other person's shoe, right?
Right.
If they're saying something to us or barking in order to us, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 or 3 levels above them that's getting barked at, and it's just cascading down, right? And you've heard that, it rolls downhill type situation. And so it's understanding that, hey, you know what? They've got to go, they've got something they've got to do, they've got someone they have to answer to, right? And so therefore understanding that allows me to say, you know what, these may be a bad day, but it's still rewarding, right? I still see value in what the end product is going to do for the community. And again, it's one of them type things, at an airport, if you know one airport, one airport, they all have their unique aspects of them, and what makes them tick. And so just getting out there, and I love solving problems. So, having a problem to solve sometimes is, even though I don't like the challenging days, sometimes it is intriguing to be able to see if I can solve this problem or this issue. So that kind of keeps me going.
Okay, that's good to know. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that
You're welcome.
with us. Would you say that there was ever anything that you would consider doing different or on the side as opposed to aviation? It doesn't sound like there is, but.
You know what? I thought long and hard about this career path, and it goes back to high school. And I, just trying to figure out what is the path for me in my life. And I remember having some counselors tell me, hey, you're pretty smart in math, you've done well in the physics classes, and they said you maybe should be an engineer. And I was like, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? So I got a book. And I read this book, and I read up on all the different engineers, electrical, chemical, industrial, and civil kind of set well with me. I really liked architecture. After going through school and thinking I was going to be more of a structural type engineer, architectural, I gravitated more towards the civil. And then when I looked at, some of my colleagues, they're deep into computers and IT, it wasn't me. Some of my friends were deep into politics, some political science. I was like, oh, that's not me. Some of my friends were great artists and could draw real well. And I said, well, that's not me. Never wanted to really go into teaching and again, no offense to any of those other career paths, it just didn't fit me, personally. And so coming into engineering and then also into aviation, what it did is allow me, if you think of an airport as a small city, it allowed me to do a multitude of things. I'm not just working on runways and taxiways. There's times that you just think about all the stuff I did at Chicago. I was working on railways. I was working on cemeteries. I was working on buildings. Sometimes I'm dealing with the terminals. Sometimes I'm dealing with fuel lines and glycol. I'm dealing with environmental issues. And so it gives me the opportunity to work with and deal with a bunch of different things, whether it is civil or not. So I've thought about it from time to time, Bernard, to be honest. And I can't think of doing anything else outside of maybe rising up in the ranks to do a little bit more management, but
Yeah.
still wanting to keep my toe right in this side of the business, which is the operations or design side as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. That's very insightful, and we're hoping to see you on that management side of the house, like you mentioned. The company's doing moving people up and diversifying. Hopefully, they consider you very seriously in the near future. It sounds like you'd be a great candidate. So, with that, I would like to also ask you, what are, if you would, maybe three or four things that you might recommend someone who's graduating high school or in college and trying to consider a career and to become the next Johnny Jackson, if you will. What would you recommend for them to do?
You know what? I'm gonna say, have a good study habit, right? So especially, whatever walk of the life that you're in, that study habit is key, right? Because I mean, even to today, as a professional engineer, it's a requirement that I'm constantly learning, right? I have a requirement to continue to my education, and so it doesn't mean going back to school, but I've got to stay relevant, right? And so that requires that I have that good, mental fortitude to say, hey, I need to go read up on these things. I mean, when I look at 98 and where, just the design advisory circulars from the FAA in regards to what a pavement layout look like and what the pavement section look like in the aircraft, it's completely different today, right? So if I'm going to be beneficial to my team, I've got to stay relevant. Otherwise, it's just like technology, I'll be left behind. So you want to make sure you have a good study habit. Two is definitely surrounding yourself with good people. I mean, I think back to my high school and college days. It was times you may not know it all, right? And so being able to work with people that may know a little bit more than you or something that you don't know but you know something they don't know. And so you see that team aspect, but having those good people around you can sometimes help pull you when you may be feeling down or you just may not, you need a little pick me up. Having those people around you is great. And then just to go a little deeper in that regards, you think about what I'm doing, I'm working at an airport and these commercial type airports, they're federally, mandated in regards to the safety and security around them. So, if I wanted to get out on that project site that Bernard's, on, I've got to have an airport badge. That airport badge comes with a, background check, criminal background check. So you think about the things you're doing in high school now and you're running with some friends and they do something bad and you get something on your record, that may prevent you from being able to go far in a career path because of something that you slipped up in high school. So you never want to limit yourself behind, an unfortunate situation that occurred in high school. So keep that in mind when you surround yourself with good people. A third thing I like to say to people is, learn your craft and turn not only just staying relevant, but learning the full spectrum of it, right? So you think of what I'm doing now, I'm dealing with the financial side, and things of that nature, just outside of the design, but understanding the support system around me. And so, you think about all the things that are necessary to keep a project going, all the project controls people, the accounting people, the contracting people, your administrative assistants to bring in, your substance consultant when you got to meet them. There's so much that goes into just a project, moving outside of what you're doing. Is really good to understand and be humble that it takes a team to get a job done, right? And so never putting yourself to say, look, I'm at a level, so therefore I'm above whatever else is around me, right? Because without that support system, you may not be successful. So keeping that in mind as well. And then the last thing is wanting to have fun, right? So whatever you're doing, you want to try to have fun with it. So when you think about a career path, and when I say have fun, don't look at the dollars, right? A lot of people go on career paths focus on, I want to make this type money, I want to make all this money, and there's unfortunate events where people are making tons of money, millions of dollars, and you look at them and they do crazy things in terms of taking their lives. I'm not going to go a little deep on you, but the money is not everything. You want to do something that's going to. You asked me earlier, why do I continue to do what I do? It's fun majority of the time, and I enjoy getting up. And so make sure you find a path that fits you well, and that you'll be comfortable to have and having fun. That you want to get up from day to day.
Yeah, thanks. That's really sounds like sound advice. We
Yeah.
really appreciate that. So you mentioned surrounding yourself with people who can support you and support your growth. That Well, I was just curious if you would be willing to sort of be a resource for our viewers, and to provide any sort of input that they might have, or on questions or things about you or your career, or how, or if you have any advice to them, via email, whichever way that you would like to provide. Would you be willing to be a resource for that?
Definitely. I'll definitely be willing to be a resource. I am today. I've got several people that you can say I mentor, or can reach out to me. Actually, I was just talking with a friend of mine. His son is going through civil engineering school and needs an internship, and I'm like, well, let me talk to you and help you, through that process. I needed the help, right? And that's part of the community aspect that so even outside of the job, I'm saying the community, right? And the people in and around you. It was a village that helped me get to where I'm at today. So I feel I have a responsibility to do more, to give back, to help that next group of people to come up as well. So I'm always a resource. I know my time a lot of times is limited. I may not, be easily accessible, but I do my part to try to be there to be an advocate for people. And one of the things too, I like to say, just two things to add on to that is, have multiple connection points for people. I would say have more than one mentor, because you can get, being back to that diversity of thought, right? You want to be able to have people in that can guide you in different things. And so one person may not be able to have that great advice for everything that you may be going through. But if you have multitude of people, depending on the situation that you may be in or advice you may need, one person over the other may be a better suit for you and help and guide you in that need. And so therefore have multiple mentors. And one thing that we're doing deep too in terms of our company is trying to do more of what we call sponsorships. So a mentor, they may just come and talk to you, give you advice, but you want to also find somebody as you get to your career path or in your school curriculum that can, advocate for you. I used that term earlier and say, look, I see something in you and I'm going to help you by charting a path for you to come up, right? So I'm going to start opening doors for you to follow. And so you want to be able to be connected with people like that as well. And when I say connection, I'm gonna add a fifth one to that other question you asked me. When you're meeting good people, you want to stay connected with them. So it's a great platform we have now through LinkedIn. I didn't have it in my early career path, but that's a wealth of a valuable resource that you should keep connection with, especially early on, because you never know where someone will be. So who's your friend now? Y'all may go off to different schools. That may be a client or a resource as a consultant for you down the road, but you want to keep those relationships intact. We call it zippering. I'm kind of doing this with my hands because you never know as you come up in life, where your paths may cross again. And so therefore you want to be able to say, hey, I remember him. I know him. We have a great rapport and y'all can lean on each other, or advocate for each other down the road. So keep those, relationships alive. Don't burn any bridges, right? But keep those relationships alive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent advice. Thank you so much for that. Well, is there anything that you would like to say in closing to kind of bring everything full circle around?
If I did, I like to just, make a shameless plug on something that I was able to do is you just never know where, your career path may take you. So you talk about your brand, right? And so a lot of people know me from the bow tie. So I had to put the bow tie on for you, Bernard. It's been a minute with the COVID and working from home.
Yeah.
But it felt good to put it on. And so when I talk about that, having those good people around you, you want to think about your brand and what people are going to think about you when you're not around and how they're going to speak about you when you're not around. So you've got to make sure that you're a person that people want to be around and work with. I've worked and ran across a lot of people, intelligent people or people that had a lot of connections, but the brand wasn't one people wanted to be around, and it hurt them and it stifled their career growth. And so you got to think about that, right? You can know it all, but your know-it-all attitude can then rub people the wrong way, right? And so knowing it all, but knowing how to work and deal with people where people are, you feel inviting and people want to work with you, that goes a long way. But in that, think about it. Think about the community that you came from and making sure you do something to help others. And so one of the things that I had the fortunate opportunity to be a part of when I was in Chicago was helping to start a nonprofit called TuskegeeNEXT. And so you think about that term, the Tuskegee Airmen working with the Dodo chapter in Chicago. This is honoring the history and the legacy of what they were able to accomplish during World War II. And understanding, you talk about diversity, there wasn't a lot of opportunities when they came back from that war to continue their flight training and opportunities into the commercial airline opportunity. And so now what we're trying to do with this program is we've been our 5th year now, is create an opportunity to take away the financial hurdle sometimes that prevents our kids, you say Black and brown, from being able to fund the private pilot's license aspect. And so we help them and we get them connected with people like myself and you, Bernard, to understand, hey, this is an option, a career field. So we help bring forth that awareness. And so I would encourage people as they come through their career path, look at things that they can do to leave their mark, right, on society. So TuskegeeNEXT was one great one for me. Keep a broad mindset, I would say as well. I had the opportunity to go to Rwanda, Africa, and build a bridge with an organization called Bridges to Prosperity. Had nothing to do with aviation, but that airplane took me from Dallas, Texas, over to Rwanda, Africa, so I can impart into a community to help them continue to thrive and be able to do more and be successful. So with that, I'd just like to say, hey, always keep that community focus in mind with whatever career path that you go into, because like you said, there's I'm a Johnny Jackson, but there's another one behind me coming up, and they may just need to be able to see you or her to keep that encouragement to move on and pursue their dreams and be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all those words of wisdom. We really appreciate those. Yeah, I don't think you could have said it any better. It's very insightful, and we really appreciate that.
No problem, Bernard. Thank you for, I just thank you, right, for what you're doing. This is part of that community, right? You're giving back.
Absolutely.
But thank you for thinking enough of me to feel like I could be a part of this platform in regards to what you're doing. So I'm honored for that opportunity. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was, we remembered that Johnny Jackson brand. So we had to reach back and make sure we included you because, yeah. So thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.